Big question. How did Democrats lose? This is really the biggest question because Democrats shouldn't lose. I mean, it's literally the 99% versus the 1%, and yet they lose all the time. Republicans control two-thirds of state governments, two-thirds of governorships, the Senate, the House, the presidency, probably the Supreme Court soon. This shouldn't happen. I mean, we should own the majority of the country, but we don't. And how is that possible? I think it's simple. Democrats take a big issue and they make it small. Republicans take a small issue and they make it big. Okay? So for over incarceration, now, the large majority of people don't think we should have the largest prison population in the world, okay? But you tell people, we got the largest prison population in the world, no other country locks up as much people as we do, we gotta do something about that. But then you tell people, well, it disproportionately affects black people. That's 13% of America. So you went from 100% to 13%. Well, it's black men, really. That's 6%. Well, it's really poor black men from the inner city who are a certain age group, 2%. So you've already cut an issue smaller and smaller and smaller into rushing nesting dolls of different groups. Republicans do the opposite. The death tax. Well, that affects almost nobody. When you call it the estate tax, when you call it the death tax, oh my God, they're going to come after my Jesus figurine collection. I'm not going to be able to leave that to my daughter when I die. Let's take a quick look at the breakdown. So you have 99% versus 1%. Okay, this is economic issues. We should never lose if it's just that way. But what Democrats do is they divide it into smaller groups. First you have Occupy Wall Street. Now then you go to the 40% versus 59% that's Hillary versus Bernie. Okay, 40% of people, Democrats are too corporate, we don't like them, we don't like that inside the Democratic Party, 59% don't believe that. Then, after that 59%, you divide that into Black Lives Matter. So let's say that 13% of that group is black people, 46% are not. Then you have a group left over that may go up to where Republicans are. Now they talk about tax cuts, but they don't talk about tax cuts for the rich. They talk about jobs. That creates jobs. Nobody would be for a 1% tax cut for the rich. Like nobody would want a tax cut that only benefits them. So they have to make it sound like jobs. And 95% of people are either looking for a job or they have a job or unemployment rate is relatively low, and most retirees vote Republican anyway because of the cultural issues, like the Southern strategy. Southern strategy divides it into 75% white people, 30% black people. Then the 70% white people go into what I call the Northern strategy, which is where the Northern strategy tells us, oh, you don't want to vote for Democrats, they're too corporate, you want to vote for the Green Party or the Libertarian Party or somebody else or an independent or somebody like Bernie who's not in the Democratic Party. That encourages a lot of people to stay home, and they don't vote because we go back to that 40% from the Occupy Wall Street that likes Bernie and nobody else. And you take that 70% that's already been weeded out from the Northern strategy, from the Southern strategy, and then 30% of those people, 30, 40, whatever, don't even vote from the Northern strategy. You're dealing with the Democratic electorate that is largely not voting or easily poached by the Republicans when they talk about cultural issues, tax cuts, jobs. So this is what Democrats have got to quit doing. We've got to stop dividing ourselves into smaller groups. We got to call Republicans out when they take a really tiny issue like transgender bathrooms and make it a huge issue, like, oh, we're protecting your daughters, your sons, whoever, from these weird perverts that are in the bathroom or whatever. They've already conceded some of the social battleground. Democrats did gay marriage. I mean, I think when you go from gay marriage is your big issue to we're going to stop transgender people from using the bathroom, we already won a lot of that social ground. But now we got to make it up economically, because if the majority of people are thinking Republicans are for jobs and Democrats are, I don't know, they're kind of all over the place economically, we've lost. We got to make up that ground.